Hello everyone and a big welcome to Sanderson TV. It's the June edition. We are counting down to the end of the financial year, and Roy Sanderson, as we sit here today, there is one more trillionaire than the last time we met. Welcome.
There is. Hi Dave, great to be back again. Yes, look up SpaceX if you're wondering who the trillionaire is.
Of course, we talk of none other than Elon Musk. That's big news in the stock market, and we're going to look into the stock market in more detail. And we're also going to look into some tax tips that can help you in the lead up to tax time, which is coming up, Roy. Are you starting to prepare all your processes and your team at Sanderson?
Lots of pre-June 30 tax planning right at the moment, so we're running out of time for that, but that's keeping us very busy.
It's an important time, so let's get into our tax tips because with only 15 or so, or only 2 weeks to go until the end of the financial year, some of the decisions you make now will actually impact your tax return for FY26. Let's kick off with novated leases as a tax tip, Roy. What have you got for us here?
Just want to point out that novated leases for employers, sometimes employers don't want to do this because it's too hard, too difficult. But it's actually beneficial for your staff members, especially if they're looking at an electronic vehicle because there's no fringe benefits tax. I'm suggesting here, reach out to an accountant who can refer you and assist you in setting up novated leases for all your staff. It's just another way to look after your team.
Another one for businesses, Roy, is superannuation. Now, there's been a lot of warning about this one, but it still sort of feels like the date snuck up on us. 1st of July 2026 is same-day super. Talk us through what this is and what that means for businesses.
The critical point is that the superannuation must be paid on the same day as you pay the wages. Technically, it's within 7 days, but it does mean from a cash flow perspective, you've got to have the money. Now, we're suggesting that with a little bit of planning, you might actually have some money owed to directors, director loans. You may have some dividends you want to pay. It's possible for the business to borrow some money to pay those items out so that you've got enough money to pay same-day super. So think about your cash flow before July 1 and look at setting up loans in advance.
Donations are generally tax-deductible, Roy, but there are some traps for young players, if you like. And I talk of players in the sense of sports people. Talk us through this one.
Well, it's very hard for sports people to spend the time required for training. Christian Painter, we've jumped on the back of Christian with some support. He's been in the Oceania Championships and National Championships, looking at the World Athletics Championships. He's a decathlon. You can't give money to Christian personally and get a tax deduction, but if you do it through the Australian Sports Foundation, you get a tax deduction for that donation. As we lead into June 30, jump into that website, which is Australian Sports Foundation, asf.org.au. Go to campaigns, look up Christian Painter, throw a few dollars his way so that he can actually focus on becoming a leader around the world in the decathlon area.
All right, Roy, trick without notice. I'll be on the record. I'll donate $10, let's call it, for every leg of the decathlon you can name right now. How many you got for us?
Marathon, swim,
I'll give him 100.
Bike riding. Throw in 100. I'm not going to get the 10.
I'll throw in 100. And well done to Christian. Well done to anyone who can compete in the decathlon. You've got to be talented in so many different ways, and that's a great initiative that you can then have that tax deductible in the FY26 tax.
And how many are there in that decathlon?
10.
10. Correct. 10.
That's the only thing I know about it. Hey, tax time is coming up, but there is one thing that you want to make mention of in terms of booking your appointment, Roy.
We start with vouchers.
Oh, sorry, staff vouchers. Yeah, sorry.
This is important because it's tax-free to the staff member. $299. Hard to get a voucher for $299. They generally go in $50 components because I've done this for RJS. So let's say you go out and get a $250 voucher. It's tax deductible to the employer when you buy the voucher, even if you hand the voucher to the staff member after June 30, and there's no FBT payable. This this is just a no-brainer. And the voucher can be a Village Road show, it can be Coles Myer, it can be my favourite Dan Murphy. So I'm just surprised that more employers don't take advantage of this. And by the way, the limit that the government have set of $299, that was set 40 years ago. I think it's time to increase that to say $1,000 because that's been $299 for a long time.
We know they're watching this one. Roy, just a question on that. So if you give a staff member 2 vouchers for $299, does that still work?
It works as $299 per staff member. So if you've got 10 staff members, you can go out and buy 10 vouchers. Theoretically, that's 1 per staff member.
Perfect. Okay, well, that's a good one. Now, the one that I jumped to earlier was this one about booking your tax return appointment and perhaps just delaying a couple of weeks after the financial year.
Yeah, from an accountant's perspective, I've noticed my diary and our diaries are already booking out in the first week of July. The reality is we need some information from the tax office to finalise your tax return and lodge it. All those items there, salaries, interest, dividends, private medical cover, generally they're updated by the 15th. So if you're jumping onto the website to make a booking with your accountant or us, I would suggest that you don't make it before the 15th.
Roy, you've been making waves on social media and people have been offering their opinions, some people supportive of yours, some people not supportive, but you've started a great conversation online. I tasked you with finding something from your social media and taking it to this show. What have you got for us today?
Well, I had a series of budget bombshells and I've done 0 to 10, from 1 to 10, and the one that hit the most views with about just under 76,000 views was number 2, where I talked about capital gains tax for people who had purchased assets from the 20th September 1985. That's when they invented capital gains tax. And the reality is we've had, about 40 budgets that haven't attacked this, but right now the current government have said they are now going to apply capital gains tax to these areas. And this got the most views and caused the most angst, I think, from most people saying it's a little bit unfair.
I think, yeah, your point in the last paragraph there, many Australians built their retirement plans around the understanding these assets were protected. I think that's what people have or people find challenging is when you make plans and then those plans are changed by government policy. So, Roy, would it be fair to say that you have previously said that the tax system needs reform, but it obviously needs to acknowledge its position historically in reforming it moving forward?
Yeah, I'm really big on don't go backwards in changes. Make it effective from when the budget was announced. So to turn around and say that people who made the decisions or bought property prior to budget night are going to be affected by the new rules. I would have said only for purchases from budget night get affected.
And this next slide we've got actually talks to some of that, the budget night, and this is exactly what you're articulating there. Yeah,
so as of us going to air today, it's passed the House of Representatives, which it did on the 4th of June. There's a forecast that we'll have a deficit of $31.5 billion, which on its own is just extraordinary. We're expecting the Senate inquiry to conclude around the 22nd of June. This is not law yet, so the biggest take-home, despite the issues I have, which I've listed out there, the take-home is it's not law yet. Don't make changes until you see the actual law, because there may be some political negotiations that changes or tweaks these a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair, and clearly the government is still talking to particular interest groups around these changes. So I'm with you. Don't expect that those changes will all be passed without potentially changes or reforms to the current policy that's been proposed. Well, this has been a mainstay of RJS TV for many years, the consumer confidence number, and confidence is down, Roy, in June. I think I said last month that I expected it to continue to go up off the back of a peace deal in Iran. Well, I think peace deal in Iran is something that is now a term that perhaps people don't even have confidence in itself. We've seen 2 or 3 peace deals that have sort of half come through or half fallen through, and there's still no confidence in the market.
I still think, Dave, you've got a chance to be right on this. By the end of June, we might see, because that's through to the 15th of June, by the end of June we may see that increase, especially given some announcements in the last 24 hours about the peace deal. And it'll depend on what happens in the last couple of weeks of June, I believe.
And staggering to look at where it is historically. This graph paints a pretty stark picture. Like, remember how you felt when the government announced lockdowns? Well, that's effectively how people are in COVID, that is. That's effectively how people are feeling now, which is quite staggering.
Historically, we're at the worst possible confidence point for so many reasons. You mentioned Iran and what's happening overseas, but also, budget announcements and interest rates, and there's so many factors that go into how we as a consumer feels. We are going to get to the stock market now, but before we get there, we need to make sure that people know that this is just general advice. It's a general advice warning. We're going to talk about particular stocks, and if you are seeking more specific advice, please do go and see a registered financial advisor. The ASX over the last year has gone up about 3%, Roy. 4.4% for the year so far. And interestingly, in the last 30 days or 1 month, it's been 3.3%. So most of the growth is in the last month because we had a reasonably large drop in March, and we'd had one also before Christmas. So interestingly, this is well below average. The average is up around 8% over the long term for a 12-month period. We've got 30th of June coming up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the balance of June and whether there's a rush of funds out of the big industry funds or self-managed super funds into the stock market, which will bolster the returns. And that's pretty much what I'm expecting.
So as you see there, it's gone up 3.3% in the month. So there's still a chance of hitting around that 7 to 8% growth if we have a similar month or a similar fortnight. And it's not out of the question. We've seen some pretty big market fluctuations over the last few weeks. The next one we're going to look at is Wesfarmers and the Commonwealth Bank, a couple of mainstays of the ASX 200. We've been tracking these stocks for a few months now, Roy, and there's some interesting stories to come out of the last month. I
flagged them, and that little red mark is last presentation we did, last RJS TV, and it's jumped. Certainly Wesfarmers, who are Bunnings as part of their ownership, they've jumped quite considerably in the last month. And CBA, not that much, but certainly down over where it's been throughout the last 12 months. And I just flagged those because we've been tracking those for the last number of shows.
Another one that is an interesting one. This is the stat on July only for the last 10 years. It's perhaps a reflection of some cycles that happen based on the end of the financial year, Roy, but it is interesting that the average gain has been 3.28%.
Yeah, so I'm always keen to look at the history to see what might happen in the future. And given we haven't had a negative month of July, which means that we get past June 30 and money flows into the share market. And the share market and the return is influenced by the big not self-managed super funds, the industry funds. And if that money is flowing in July, then it's going to be a good month of July. It historically has, but I just wonder if a lot of the industry funds will flow their money in June at the expense of July, because the return so far for the last 12 months that we just saw is pretty ordinary.
Interesting. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how this next fortnight plays out, and then the early parts of July as well. One thing that we do know is that households maybe have a little bit of money to invest in the stock market if they want to, because that gross savings ratio is actually up higher than it's been historically. Yeah,
here's some flags. I wanted to check these out to see where we were going and look at it over a 10-year period or so. And this is, quite a long period. And if you look at the top red line, disposable income, not too bad. We're sitting at about the average over quite the long term. And same with consumption, not too bad. where we're at right at the moment. And our gross saving ratio, again, not too bad. I know during COVID when we weren't spending but getting government handouts, we all had huge savings ratio, but right at the moment, we've just tweaked up and we're just fractionally above the average.
It's a really, it's quite a staggering statistic, Roy, because on the one hand, you've got high interest rates, high inflation, and you've got low consumer confidence. And then on the other hand, you've got households that are actually saving money. So I guess it's almost a little bit counterintuitive, but also maybe the inference there is that people are scared. Like they're socking money away because they're worried about the prospect of higher interest rates, the prospect of their goods and services going up, and the prospect of there being more financial turmoil ahead with things like the war in Iran and other sort of external events. So it's quite an interesting graph.
It is, and maybe we're spending less money, and that might be because our consumer confidence is down, and we are worried, just like you said, about all those factors.
Let's turn our attention to property now, and another one that sort of paints a pretty clear picture here is auction clearance rates. It's in freefall at the moment.
Well, government policy is certainly affecting property, and there's targets for the first home buyers to move into the market. And I've got a few slides here, but the first one being on auction clearance rates. Yeah, they're freefall. They're as low as they have been for a long time. Over 20 years, our auction clearance rates have just tumbled, and I can't see that will turn around in a hurry.
Values are down. Home values are also down over the last 3 months. Sydney and Melbourne are the key contributors to that.
Yes, again, policy. We want first home buyers. They say that house prices are too high, so values are coming down.
The supply of houses is another thing that's interesting, and the supply of rentals. You can see, and that trend line paints a pretty clear picture, Roy.
That explains, why these all go hand in hand, don't they, Dave? Total listings are down, which is a little bit of a worrying trend. But policies, this is what the policies are doing.
And if there's less supply, then what happens? The price goes up.
Rents have jumped up to 5.9%. I know that post-COVID rents went through the roof. They had big increases. But if you look at where we were some time back, back in 2016 to 18, we were under 3%. And this is growth per year. Rents are going up at 5.9%.
Vacancy rates are also down.
Less vacant properties. All these point towards rents going up and continuing to go up. And we're way below the 10-year average on vacant properties.
And then I guess what it means for the people who rent is this.
This is a concern because 33% of your household income has to go towards rent. And that's as high as it's been on that over that last 20-year period.
And really, if you look at December 20 there, it's sitting at about probably, let's call it 26, 27%. So it's gone up 7% in the last 5 years. And that's not 7% increase in rent. That's an increase of 7% of your total income is required to pay rent. So if you were paying $25,000 a year in rent and you earned $100,000, you're now paying $32,000 a year in rent. So that's a considerable amount of your income is going to rent. 30% of your average income is, or of your 30% or 33% of your income is now going to rent. It means that 1/3 of the money that you make is straight away gone to rent.
And this is the result of government policy at federal and state level. When land tax go up, compliance costs go up, they're making it harder and harder for landlords. Then landlords are going to walk away. We're going to have less rental properties and rents will go up. I would hate to be in the rental market right now. I mean, you are the disadvantaged right at the moment. And I know the government federal policy says we want more first home buyers, shifting people out of the rental market. But I've got to tell you, my parents didn't buy their first property until they were in their 40s, and I don't understand today's logic that, you move out of home from mum and and dad and you should be able to go and buy your first house straight away. No, you've got to do some hard yards, and generally you go and rent somewhere, or once you get stuck on the rental treadmill, you're not getting off it, unfortunately. That's the reality of it.
Let's change pace a bit, Roy, now, because we've got one of my favourite parts of this show is when we get to have a look at some of the weird and wacky things that people try to claim on their tax return. Here's a couple of crazy deduction attempts, Roy.
These have come from the tax office, believe it or not. Things that they caught when they've done audits for people who were not using an accountant or a tax specialist. Somebody tried to claim food while they were having online meetings working from home for morning tea. That's not tax deductible. The security dog working from home, they did claim food and vet bills. It was a Labrador. It doesn't matter what sort of dog it was. I just thought I'd explain it was a Labrador, which is not much of a security dog. Fact is, I own a Labrador, and they would lick a thief to death. It's not tax deductible. Victoria's Secret's pyjamas, because you needed to be comfortable at home. Love the concept, but it's not a tax deduction. And kilometres travelling from home office to the work office. There was a court case that said, yes, we can claim that. Tax office appealed it, and it's not tax deductible. And the tax office have seen that people doing their own tax return have been claiming it.
I'll take 1, 2 and 4, but the pyjamas is a bit much.
Yeah, way too much. Morning coffee on the way to work for you and your colleagues. It's not a tax deduction, sorry. Secret Santa gifts. They build good DNA and good culture within the workforce, but your Secret Santa gift is not a tax deduction. And when you go to the pub for Thursday night drinks with the work team, and it's your shout, you can't claim that either. Now, all these deductions, the tax office uncovered in audit. So, thought I'd share them with you. They're crazy.
I like that. Our viewer question this week is a little bit different. Usually they are asking us about a tax matter. This time it's an economic matter. Roy, give us a prediction for the rest of the year on interest rates, and does the Reserve Bank have any other levers other than interest rates?
Here we go. Interest rates, as we know, have just been put on hold for until the next meeting. 2 banks have come out and said they'll probably be on hold for the next 12 months. I tend to think, I agree, they won't go up and they won't go down. We know that inflation is still above the target. It's at 4.2%, and we know that the minimum wage increase went to 4.75%. Now, that means that people should have increase in wages. Let's say 4 to 5%, wages will go up. That puts more money into the economy, which will fuel inflation. Now, I've got a theory here, Dave, and you'll hear it first here. Nobody else has come up with this theory.
On camera, please.
When the government or the Federal Reserve Bank, they increase interest rates, it's a waste of money. And that's the only lever being used for inflation. I think there's another one we could invent, and that is, let's have a component of superannuation that shifts up or down depending on where the inflation rate is. As an example, inflation rate is too high and we want to take money out of the economy. Instead of increasing interest rates, why couldn't we increase superannuation across all workers by 0.5%, 0.25% maybe? It takes money out of your wage and goes into superannuation, like they do with interest rates, where it comes out of your wage and goes off to the bank as a higher interest rate, which only affects those with loans, businesses and individuals, investors and homeowners. At least superannuation would affect all workers. The aim is to take money out of the economy, and you do it via superannuation. And when that superannuation is paid, if it's going up by 0.25% or down by 0.25%, when it's going into super, it's going into my retirement, so I'm going to be better off later. When it goes to higher interest rates, it's going nowhere. Nobody benefits, certainly not me, not us. So I think there's a theory.
Wow. Stop the show and put that on TikTok straight away. That is unbelievably an unbelievably astute judgment from you, Roy, and a totally logical solution. Like, I guess people would say the counter to that would be that the superannuation funds are going to push that money back into the economy. But as you say, no different to the banks doing the same thing with the money from interest rates. So what an astute point and what a logical and clever solution to that problem. Roy, in the theme of positivity, there's a big shout out that you want to make at this point.
Yes, somebody came to us with 12 years worth of tax returns. I can tell you they were super stressed. We did the tax returns. They got $9,233 in refunds. They are elated. Apart from the stress has gone that they're now up to date, they've got a big windfall. So if you know anybody who's got outstanding tax returns, whether it's 12 years or 20 years or 3 years, get them to reach out to an accountant. Certainly we put our hand up for that. This was a very happy client. It's not always bad news when you've got old outstanding tax returns.
All right, let's get into the longest running segment on this show. It's time for Roy's Rage. What have you got for us now, Roy?
Well, what annoys me greatly is that when I cast my vote at the last federal election, I cast that vote based on promises made by politicians. I believe there needs to be accountability and honesty in politics, and right now I feel that there definitely isn't. You know, there were questions asked of the Prime Minister at the time, will they have any policy affecting negative gearing and capital gains tax? And to quote, "My word is my bond, it is off the table for the 50th time. We will not affect negative gearing or capital gains tax." Now, to say that they had shifted their position, it was only 12 months ago. The position should not have shifted. I believe that we need honesty, and I believe now, I'm siding with the opposition, we should go to an election for these policies because we voted on it only 12 months ago and they were not going to be new policies. Now that they're policies, we should go back to the electorate and we should vote whether we want those policies in or not.
Bang, there you go. Roy, you've got plenty to offer on a multitude of topics and you've already given us everything for today. Well done, thank you. Any closing thoughts and perhaps any particular advice for what people should do in the last 13 days of the financial year?
I would be reaching out to your accountant ASAP. He can jump online and see if you've got any tax planning opportunities in relation to super or others. We have a tax tips guide that we share. So if you want one of those, just email our office and we'll get it out to you. Hopefully interest rates don't move. We're not back in July because July is flat out. We're doing lots of tax returns, but we are back in August. Dave?
Brilliant. And if you're looking for tax tips now, in July or in August, rjsanderson.com.au. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed and got something out of today's show. We'll see you next time.